All right. Good evening, everyone. Sorry about that. Our traffic was really bad today. All right. So today, let's see. So today we are going to. So you guys remember the MERN stack when we started the program? This came up, MERN. So from the MERN stack, we looked at M is the Mongo part. We already looked at Mongo. E is the Express. You guys know Express also now. R is the React, and N is the Node.js. All right. So if you can believe that the React part that we have done till now is is enough for you guys to create an app, actually work in a industry also, because those are the basic React things that everybody is kind of using. Now there are more advanced topics to it, but you will learn those when you are working on something and when you're creating. Once you kind of get used to these concepts, when your app kind of grows bigger, you'll be like, okay, I need to go and see how this can be done or what's the solution for this. At this point, we've covered a lot. So in today's class, if you look at the exercises from 8 to 12, I want you guys to get some practice around it now. So you guys we'll be doing a lot of exercises today. All of these from 8 to 12, 5 exercises, and you guys will be working on it. Work with a partner, neighbor to solve these exercises. This will give you good practice related to React also, and the whole thing, starting from Mongo up till Node, using React and Express. Okay, so the first one, I'm just going to show you how these exercises are kind of structured. So if you look over here, you will see a client folder, and then you will see some other files, package JSON, and server.js. All right. In our applications, or the application that you will be working on, or the project that you will be building in, your front end and your back end would all be inside like a one large folder, but they will be kind of divided inside it. Okay. This is useful when you deploy to Heroku. So you will have your server also running in Heroku, and you will also have your client or your React app also running in Heroku. Okay. The only difference would be the port numbers. Okay, so there could be only one application running on one port number. The only difference would be you would be running your server on a different port number and your client or your React app on a different port number. Okay. Now if you look at this, if I expand the client folder, something interesting is you have two package JSON over here. Okay. The root one kind of belongs to the server side, and the client has its own package JSON, right? And the reason is, of course, there are different libraries that you're using in your React app versus some of the different libraries that you're going to be using on your server. Okay. If I open the client one, of course, is using React, React DOM, some other scripts. Okay. And take a look at this one, and this one is different, using Express, some other libraries that kind of are going to run on your server. Okay, but if you do a npm install on your root folder, both of your package.json are going to kick, and they're going to install everything that are in both of them. Okay, let's see. Okay. Am I in the wrong folder? 07. Yeah, sorry. Should be inside the create. Okay. That's going to like take a minute. So that's the difference. Now, if you look at your, open up the client folder contains all the code related to your React app. Okay, same structure, starting from app.js, then you have your public folder. which has all your index file. Right now, your source folder on the client side is just the boilerplate code. Nothing has been added. This was just to give you an example how it is. Okay. Your server.js, nothing special in here too. It's just starting Express server and listens at a port number. Okay. Now to specify this thing. Now looking at the packet.json for the client side, you will see a attribute or a field called proxy, and it has a localhost 3001. Okay, so 3001 is the one where your server is going to run, and 3000 is your React app. And of course, this is all local. I'm talking about local. Okay. The reason we have specified due to this, if you specify the proxy, when you write your React code and you are contacting your APIs, which are on your server, you can refer to them as /API/ let's say there's an API for books. This API exists on your server side. It's not on your client side. Your client has no idea where this is. Okay. If you put in localhost 3001, your the app is kind of smart enough to realize where this exists. And if you refer to an AJAX call using this, it will find that proxy. It knows that your server is running on localhost 3001, and it will make that call. If you take this line out, then you have to put in the complete path. You have to say http://localhost/ colon 3000 / blah blah. You have to write in the whole path, whatever you see over there, 3001. Okay, so adding the proxy kind of saves you, instead of writing this whole thing, you can just write this, and your React is going to look at, of course, your server should be running. Okay. Again, this resides in your package JSON file, which is on the client side, so that you're telling your client that go and look into port 3001. That's where my local server is running, and you will find these APIs over there. Okay, just keep this in mind. When you do the next exercise, you will see how this is working. All right, right now there's no code or anything in this boilerplate code, so that's why you don't see it. Okay, now this completed. So if you see, I have node module that is on my root folder. This is because of this file. Okay, and then on my client, I have another node module, which is because of the client package. Okay, with one command, npm install, it kind of looks for all the package.json and install everything. Okay. All right. Any questions on this? So you guys will be looking at exercises that are all are kind of built in the same format, and this will give you a taste of what a MERN application is, starting from front end, back end, middleware, everything will be included. Okay, we'll be starting from 08. Now, one more thing over here is, let me see if it's, yeah. So on your root package.json, you have these start commands. Okay, start prod. These things you will see once you, at the end of the exercise, the last exercise is to deploy it on Heroku. And that's where these commands will come into play. When you deploy it in Heroku and you want to start your client side, you want to start your server, Heroku looks into your package.json and kind of executes these commands. So the prod one is going to run in your Heroku server. Okay, and basically it's saying node server.js, start my server.js. So these are the scripts that run accordingly. Okay. Um, what else? Yes, one more thing is either stick to yarn or stick to npm or npm. Okay, you cannot use both. um, if I'm using npm, if I have a yarn file which gonna gets created, if somebody who's using yarn, you will see it creates a yarn.log file or something. So you can either have a package log.json or a yarn log.json. Oh, sorry, yarn.log, I think that's what it is. Okay, it can be either one. Both, you cannot have both. Heroku will give out an error. It's going to give all kind of messages. It's not going to let you deploy your app. Okay, so stick to one of the things. In the README, you you'll find that the instructions are using yarn, but I have built um, these things using npm. So if anybody is using npm kind of runs into that issue, let me know. I can help you out because I have done with npm. It still works. The commands are still the same: npm install, npm start. The only difference you would see is when it comes to Mongo, and I'll get there in a minute. All right. Any questions you guys have? Okay, so today is all about coding, all about exercises. So you guys will be working on those applications. Let's go ahead and see what's the first one. Let's see if there is anything to do with Mongo over here. Okay, so the first one doesn't look like there's anything to do with Mongo. We'll see if there is. Okay, so the first one starts with React and Express. Okay, so go ahead and take a look at this. Slowly, I think by the end you'll be using all four. So start with the React and Express. So you're going to create a server kind of APIs, and this is how the front end looks like. You can search for recipes. Okay, it's going to pull out some recipes, and they're going to be rendered on the screen. All right. Looks like you just need to modify the front end in part 1. So all the front end is of course in React. So take a look at the React portion. Okay, so this is the backend. This is the backend. The routes is also still part of the backend. All right, these routes, these are not the React router routes. Okay, these are your API routes. You already have your components. You need to update your app.js. So this is actually built completely with the React code. You can create a new React app and just copy the whole source and the public folder, replace it, and it should be fine. Or actually, you know what? You don't even need to do that. Just do npm install and give it a try. I think they should work without anything. I think I did the edible, right? Yeah, that's what so you don't even need to create React app and all that stuff. Just do an npm install, run it, and see what the web page comes up with, and it's missing these things. So go ahead and complete these things. Take a look at it. Look at the folder structure. Look at what the components are and kind of how they are divided, how each component has been built. It will give you a good overview also, and will also help you understand when you go ahead and create your React app, you know, how to divide all this stuff up. Because these are some really good examples. You can see how the components, each thing is a component basically. All right. Working groups help each other. Make sure that your partner, both of you, are able to achieve this exercise, and we'll keep moving on from exercise to exercise today. All right. What I'll do is I'll run this solve one, install everything, and then show you guys how this is running in the meanwhile. All right. Any questions you guys have? Okay. Let's see. What is Oh no, this is your solution when you once you complete everything. So it should be working. So you search for something, it should show up over here, and these are all your API calls. And you got one? Oh yeah, the first, I saw this exercise and I remembered you guys. You guys did the same thing, right? Let's see what API it's using. Is it the same one that you guys used? Recipe puppy? No. Yeah. So this one uses recipe puppy to. Yeah. So looks like you have to loop through the list items. Remember the looping part? We use map in JSX.
So is the server still having correct?
Is the what?
In mine there's a build folder.
Yeah. No, what did you start with? Did you do a
XMI installer?
NVMI? Yeah. So that build folder is correct, but you don't have to worry about it right now. Build folder is when you are deploying to Heroku, and it will create a build. It will have all your HTML pages, all your routes, and everything. Yeah. But you should do a yarn install. Are you using yarn?
XMI is the example from different.
So you just need to do install. Are you on the right?
Oh, okay.
Because you're on the server. React is doing the server is doing
Well, like, I've been downloading the new class file that has all the since I got here. It's only I'm still installing the packages.
Yeah, mine's done.
And normally, like, it doesn't take this long to download. Like, my download speed is ass. It's like I have an hour left.
Well, I did it before class.
The install number I was at number 7 and not number 8.
Yeah.
So there's the files.
So instead of
Yeah, and then
usually
the
it's
files.
we'll try to start it
That's the back.
but with React it's
It will start the front end and the back end because you have the proxy that I was doing.
Yeah.
So you don't have to start the server separately.
Probably this other one.
React will take care of it.
So how do you debug it?
How do you debug it?
Yeah, the debugger doesn't work with this. It only executes the client, I think.
Executes what?
It only executes the client. Only 2,000.
Yeah. So you're trying to debug the backend?
Right, yeah.
So it should show up on your terminal. If well, you have to do a console log.
Right.
But it
there's- no, so I'm actually trying to debug it.
Like putting a
Put a
breakpoint.
in.
Yeah, breakpoint on the server side. Yeah.
Nothing.
No, I don't think so.
Not until this structure worked.
is
Hmm. So it's basically debugging Node.js. So looks like Visual Studio has some support for Node.js debugging, but I haven't tried it.
Standard movie mode, but I don't know. Learn instructions?
Is what?
It's like that learn instruction where you have that client and you have the server where you're running two different things at the same time.
This is what I'm looking at. Yeah, they should work. They're saying they should support JavaScript, TypeScript, and any other language that are transpiled into JavaScript. So React is transpiling to JavaScript eventually.
Right, they're doing it. So you're saying we're running two servers. One's on 3000,
Yeah.
the other one's on 3001.
Right.
The debugger only sees that 240.
Oh, it's only.
3000, but then doesn't execute 3000. Or
Oh.
3001 doesn't execute 3000.
Hmm.
So it's missing half of its.
Oh, I see.
You're getting an error on the other one because you're importing the. Okay. It's not going to break it, it's just giving you a heads up.
Yeah, I'm kind of going back so I can make sure it's. There we go. And then I need to go to the unsolved folder. And then it's in the right place. So then I gotta go.
You did that.
Already?
No. I'm in the number 8. So right here. Yes.
We're on project.
So I'm like right here. So if we look and then inside of file folder.
Right, so you're trying to debug the server.js, right?
Well, it's only ever going to lock one. It's two locked, right?
Yeah, so the React app can be debugged from the browser, right? Is that what you're saying? And the backend one, we are trying to figure out how to debug the backend.
We're locking two servers.
Yeah, npm what? Start?
Yeah,
Yeah.
We're locking two servers.
Yes.
But when you do the debugger, you have to execute only step one.
Okay.
You have to debug it both servers.
Hmm.
Well, we need to both operate.
Yeah, it's about yeah.
Scroll down, one of them shows up. The ones I searched to state, they don't have thumbnails.
Oh, okay. That's funny. Hmm.
Yeah, well, see what I got here. Right. I got this yeah, something's already running on that.
And if we started, that next one's to follow forward.
Yeah.
Just try to do that after we start.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, how great to be, great to continue, great to grow, great to all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I think of is profile that on the and then restart and then do the whole thing. Because otherwise, it's not a big deal. It's the marketing happening. I have to go two places. One's my work and the other. Yeah, you pull up.
The case for part one, you are just making changes to the render function. You have to write the loop using the map. So like this in your recipe list, you are looping through and assigning some rewards to it.
I know. I was double check.
No, this one will end there. The next two are the next two are build up And the last one, make sure here. Yeah, after this, everything is kind of like a build-up.
So the one you just did for the recipes doesn't build out, the next one.
No, yeah, next one. Yeah, next all build-up. And the next ones you will deploy on build cores. Yeah.
Restarting the computer, don't let anything running off. Right? Good, yes. Yeah. Can't get it to start. It's saying something's running off 3000. So, yeah. So you can.
Oh, kill the app running on port. Yeah, that should be
Okay, so start with 88.
No, swap 88.
And then you put this one in. So I do this one first. Okay.
Now, to turn out of this, so you're just going to turn this item. Here. Because we have mounted.
So that's. I did the other part. The third.
Yeah. So there's two ways you can do it.
So process.
You're opening up and now
Yeah, try that.
Yeah. See what we get here.
and that will now. So now you're inside the function. So now you're going to let's pass in the props that it takes. You just want to pass in the
There it is.
I put it in the bathroom. Yeah,
Should be good.
recipe is recipe. I can pass it.
Just ever had anything like that. What's it not?
Okay, try. I'm going to Slack you, Eric.
You're close.
Thank you. Let's see if I know who I did it. Let's see if I can explain it.
Oh, there we go.
So basically,
Yeah, tell me if something comes up. Then we'll.
Okay. Will do.
Supposed to use this space.net.
Very interesting.
Does it come up?
Yeah.
That's for passwords.
Okay. So we can do it. I put in the wrong password.
So I wouldn't say it's normal, but yeah, I didn't use it.
That's why, so right now it's all the same.
Yeah, like some days I'll be able to do it.
So that's basically the same as the client.
Yes.
Well,
It's not that one end.
Right. But that didn't make any sense. It's coming through.
Yeah.
And I've never ever once had that happen.
I'm pretty sure that this recipe is like this you set that to a different port or to the side.
This was, oh, the one you called. Okay. There we go. Right. Oh, go to the survey.
Just the bigger screen. The older one, but bigger screen.
Doesn't have what?
See,
See, no. Oh, you're on that, so you have to do node and then run that. Yeah, NPM doesn't have a C. Yeah. But that should run it, as long as your MongoD is running. Node and the file name cdb. Yeah. Browse to that file and do that. That should fix it. And make sure your MongoD is running. Yep, that should be good then.
Oh, that's why it's hard work.
Over here, you can change the port number here on your client package.json where it says start. So try this port 6.
so Brian,
See if your React app opens in a different port. Alright, so any questions you guys want to see? So let me close this and I will show you this so we can move on to the next one. In your app.js, you are writing the map function. So this is the code that you need. You're looping through your recipes and you are passing in all the information as props to your recipe list item from your app.js. Okay. And from your the rest of the stuff is in your recipe list index.js. You are getting all that information and you are rendering that on your page. Those were the two things. Is this the right one? Yeah. So you already have these things, you're looping through, you're getting the props, and then showing it on the screen. Okay, I'll push this solution in a minute so that you guys want to take a look at it, you can. But we will move on to the next one in meanwhile. So this one, so the next, this one was kind of independent activity, and it didn't include any of the database stuff and all that. Okay, it only included your React and basically Express, because you're running a server at the back end. It was making that call, getting your recipes. All the next 4 activities are kind of tied together. We'll start with the first one. So take a look at the first one. In this one, you have to create your Mongo database. All right. If you are using Yarn, then the instructions are already in the README file, and that should get your MongoDB started. But if you are using npm, you will have to go inside this file and then do a node and then seed db, node seed db. Okay, what I mean is, what you will do is, on your terminal you will do 09 ajax book, go ahead, solved or unsolved, and then is my script, so scripts. Okay, and all you have to do is node seed db.js. If you're not using Yarn, you do this, and this will run the script and will create your Mongo database. Before that, make sure on a new terminal you have started your Mongo daemon, MongoD. Otherwise, this script is going to fail. It's not going to run. Once you have MongoD running and you run this script, I used Robo3T to go and make sure that I have my database created. Well, I don't have that running, so it should give me an error. Yeah, let me go ahead and start my MongoD. Okay, then it should bring you this thing, React reading document. It should have like around 16 objects in it. Okay, this would be the final product when you run your seed database. Okay, but this is just for npm. The Yarn instructions are already there. I'm not using Yarn, so I haven't tried it out, but this should work. I don't see any issue over here. Let me know if it's not working and we can see. Once you have everything, go through the instructions, and I will install so that you guys can see how the database looks, how the application looks. Okay, so I already have all my node modules. And anything else? Yep. So you see, please go ahead and look at the folder structure also. It will help you in your projects also. When you're doing your projects, you see how everything has been divided into the MVC pattern. You can identify this by the models and the controller folders. That's on your backend. And then even in your client side, you're using basically the component model of the React. Okay. So spend some time, few minutes, look at the folder structure. Kind of helpful when you are doing your own app. Let's see, npm start should do it. Okay, so it should come up with this. you'll see when you do a submit book or anything, it actually doesn't add anything. Okay, we'll look at that in the next upcoming exercises. I think this is all pulling from the database, so you should be able to see whatever is in the database should come up and show all the books over here, all the 16. So your add is not working for now in this exercise, your delete is not working. Yeah, so these two are not. We'll fix it in the next one. For now, make sure that your web page comes up and it has all the list of the books. That's what we are doing in this exercise.
Okay, so when we open it, the book should not be there, correct? You need to have those.
Yes, I don't think the books are. Yes, so you need to, in this one, we are just reading the books. Yeah. Yep. So you have to write the AJAX request that retrieves all the books and shows up on the page. Eric, did that work? The port number thing?
No.
It's still open at 3000.
3006 is
Isn't used?
I swear to God. You can't write this crap. So, there was a list there to tell you your open processes, so I figured at least we could see what it's like. See, I don't see the, I assumed that was the full number.
I like the I'm telling you, because I didn't have to realize.
Let's see. Do 11 file. The reference not saved.
So the ask over here is when the page loads, when your books show up. So remember the method that you guys should be using when the when the page loads in React. What's that method? Anybody remember that method? When your page loads up or your component loads up, the function that is called by default. Did mount, yes. So component did mount. Component did mount. This is the method that gets called every time your component is loaded. So that's what, if you see over here, they're saying once the page opens up, you need to write some code to get that from your database. So you will be overriding this method in your book.js. So that's going to bring all your books from the database. Good job. Okay. The only file you're modifying is books.js. And take a look at api.js. It already has all the functions that you need to just need to call this and this will return you, because you don't have to even write the API code. You have to write the AJAX call to this function so that it brings it back. Actually, it's not even an AJAX call. You just have to say API dot and then call one of these functions. Get books. API dot get books, and you should make an AJAX call itself and bring you all the information in your book.js. All right, include this. You see the utils folder, it already has the api.js, and api.js has all the calls built in, so you don't have to worry about that. Just take a look at it. It is exposing all the functions using the export, and you'll have access to all of these functions, which are basically API calls to get from the database. Okay, in your book.js, you just have to include api.js file, import it, and then in your did component component did mount function, you make a call, and then you will get all your books adjacent. Do a console log, take a look at it, and then see how you render it. Look at the book.js. Oh, so you don't even have to render it. The code is already there for rendering part also. You just have to set the state.books to that array that comes back from api.js. Now I think of it just like literally 3 lines of code that you need to put over here. Did somebody do this? Am I right? This one? This exercise?
Yes.
Literally like 3 lines of code?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I...
Yeah.
As soon as as I keep reading it, I'm like, it's already rendering. You already have this. It's literally 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, including the curly brackets. 3 lines if you follow this convention. Put the initial curly bracket on the same line. Okay. Again, so you take a look at api.js, and so these are the 2 files you should be looking at. Okay. Now in this one, api.js already has the functions that will return you a list of books. And the instructions are saying when your page or when your component loads, you need to show all the books. Okay. And I told you that this is the function that gets called whenever the component loads. So you write this function. Well, look at the documentation, and it has to be the exact same name. I think it's C is lowercase, this is lowercase. Okay. And in this, you have to make a call to your api.js. Of course, it's an async method, so make sure you use the then.then in the end. And this function is going to return you an array called this function, getBooks. This will return you an array, which is this. Just assign it to this, and that's all. It should come up. Okay.
I did do that last time. Yeah. No, no. That makes no sense to me because the ports are resident. So when you're using them, they're on. And when you're not, they're off.
That's why I was thinking there, like, well, because I'm running it. There's nothing else.
Yeah, I didn't have anything else running. Just the weirdest freaking thing ever.
Right, anybody able to figure this code out? You did it. Anybody else? You guys did it? Sure. What did you write? Now you have to tell me. Code. You have to select that function out. Now I want to see that function. What did you write? All right, let me. What was that? Answer is on 3 lines. Yeah, it's well, it's well, the way it is written in the solution is like 3 lines. It's more than 3 actually. You have to write the function call. Probably take you like 5 or 6 lines. Yeah. Yeah, just write everything in one line also. There are different ways you can write it out. Let me show you. Components and oh. Yeah, well, there shouldn't be any change in API.js. So API.js already has all of, you have to make a call to it. So it should be in your books.js component. That's where the change is. Yeah.
Source pages.
Yeah. So you see line number 14. That's the function that I was mentioning. Component did mount. That's what you guys need to write it. This dot load books. Again, this is what you need to do basically. Forget about the books dot load. It's you can create a function, and within a function you can make the call. It returns. That's okay. Or you can just make this whole thing inside this function component. But this is what is important. Okay. So API, you have to import it. All right. And this code is already there, and then just call get books. Okay, since this is an async function, that's why we're using the .then .catch or whatever it is. But the more important is you make that call and then you just assign this to books. And what is books? It's the state variable that you have. Okay. And that should render the whole page, because on your render function, if you look at it, the parsing, the looping, everything is already done over here. They're looping through, taking the ID, showing the author by title, everything shows up on the screen. So that part is already done. You just have to make that call, component did mount, and then make this call. This is the one that always gets fired every time your component gets loaded. Okay. Where is books being loaded? In your app.js, if you take a look at it. So your app.js is the parent, and basically it has two children, nav and books. All right. So both are siblings. So take a look at books, what it is doing, and then take a look at nav. And nav probably has a lot more going inside it. Well, actually, no, it just has a nav bar. Okay, so that's the top nav bar, and that finishes. and then your books will have a lot more going on. Oh, there you go. So you have container, row, all of these are components that are inside this folder, and everything is being loaded over here. Again, that code is already there. The point of this was make sure you guys understand every time you want to load a component, the first time, any code that has to go there, it should be in your component did mount. Okay? All right, any questions on this? What was that? Define what? API? Yeah, where do you define the API? Should be an import statement, right? Number 3. So API is referring to the file which is under utils, api.js. And API, if you open api.js, it has a lot of functions in it, which are basically calling these APIs. Where do you think these APIs are? Huh? Where? So these APIs belong to the client side, to the front end. Okay? Now the front end is calling these APIs, the back end APIs. Where do you think these APIs are? I think that this was the most confusing part even in your projects. I noticed that people are getting confused where the APIs are. So this, again, this is all your front end. Alright, this is your back end. That's the first thing. All your backend code starts from your server.js. Alright? So that's the starting point for your server.js. So you know this is never going to be inside your client folder anyway. Okay, so it should be outside your client folder. This is a starting point. You can kind of walk through it. It's probably inside your routes. See these routes over here? This is where your all your APIs and are being built and created. Okay. Again, your MongoDB code kind of resides on the server side. So if you have to access your MongoDB, you have to create your routes on your server side and then access those routes from your front end. You cannot have your MongoDB code being directly kind of called from your client side. Or you need to have it exposed through an API. Okay, any other questions on this? Or we'll take a break at 8:05. We'll come back and we'll start the next one. Next exercise is again built up on this. So take a few minutes, make sure you guys understand the flow of the application. Let me go ahead and push the solution, or they'll post the solution. Yes.
How does this work where in the code it says report 3001?
Yeah.
But my computer is supposed to get on 3000.
Your computer is hosting your React app on 3000.
Yeah, where's on 3000?
On your React app. 3001 is your server running. So you have two separate things running. You have a server, you have a client. Yeah, you cannot run two things on the same port.
Okay, that makes sense.
So your server is running on 3001, your front end is running on 3000.
Because I try to call 3001 and I get errors.
Well, yeah, you cannot directly. Yeah, you have if you write /API/books like localhost 3001, and then you put in the API thing, then it will give you, it will return you something.
Oh yeah, there's a big old JSON.
Yeah, because that's your APIs. The APIs are always on the server side, which is 2001.
What? No. Was
So the difference in this one is that you can change the array that you are using. Yeah. Right now it's probably not changing anything.
Right.
But the max, right? It's just displaying. So at this point, it's still a same group that it loops through this array, Books, yeah, books is book. And then book is each
But that
item
logically
in
tells
that
me
array.
next
So you usually say
which is what I was hoping
array,
to do.
singular. So it says, okay, and this array function is what is it? It's a function, right? It's a use index writing function. Basically, this code is same as saying writing an anonymous function and passing in. It's the same thing. This is just a newer because this ES6 we're kind of trying to get into that habit to write that function code. That's why it looks like book, arrow, and then some function. It is exactly the same thing as this. First of all, you can actually write this. It will still work.
So is book the name of the function, or is that what's being passed into the function?
No, that is. These are always your parameters which are being passed in. So it's, yeah. There's it's an anonymous function, so there's no.
So that is basically a for each
Yes.
on this.
Yes. Exactly.
But very different. The book is for each changed the original.
React is all about
Well, yeah. For each is void, it doesn't return you anything, and map will return you a new array. Yeah, as well as saying, and React GSX requires that you return. That's what and then there's a loop through. So just building all those things. So it's moving through this thing, so the same create list item, like create so many list items. For each one, book ID, book output, right. Yeah, but you don't have to worry about the return thing. But React is meeting to relate what's you understand from where it's basically looping through and it will create multiple list items. So there are multiple list items. And the interesting thing is if you install React tools in your Chrome, you can actually see so there's an extension. If you guys already don't have React, you have it? Okay. So if you open that, do an inspect, and then there should be a tab in the end called React, and then you can look at the final thing that it is building all these things. Let's do a inspect on this one. So you see the LIs, it's creating multiple LIs. You wrote the map function, but this is the output of the map function. So it's looping through and it's outputting all these different things. Yep. So it's whatever 16. So it's looping through and outputting 16 list items. You can see the output in your React. That's what the map function does. Yes. So okay, again, going back, what was I saying? Component did mount. This is the method that comes with the React, right? There were 4 functions: constructor, render, right? Do you see the render function here?
Like that now? Yeah.
So you have render function, and then you can also have a constructor, and then there's one more called component did mount. This one. Okay. So component did mount gets automatically called every time your component loads. So you need to put that, you need to create that function and then put that method call in that function. So eventually it's going to look something like this. And this function, how does this gets called? React knows. I mean, React is expecting that. Yes. You change the name of this to React component did mount 1. It's not going to work because React doesn't know. Okay. Do take a look at the React documentation. They have there are a few more methods. Component did update, component will mount or something. So all of those are defined over there. Take a look at those 2.
cryptographic should be Daniel.
Yes.
When we run like the friend funder on server 3 or port 3000,
And on 2001, I changed the settings on both of them to both emails.
just well every example is right, but we're not going to use it.
Well, the friend finder doesn't have everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you return.
I was going to replace these files just in case I got something screwed up in here. I think the only one I used was that one. But just to be safe, all this stuff. And that way I won't have any error code in there. So, I'm just going to do it back up here.
Eric, try that. Just copy and paste it in your Chrome browser.
Oh, we did that one.
You did that?
Oh, we didn't do the Apache internal stuff. Yeah, we
There were
didn't.
no service workers running. That was my.
Okay. Try the
But
next
we're going to try the second one because we didn't
Yeah.
do that one. That means nothing, right?
So if you're not taking the break, start looking at the exercise number 10. This is add-on from the previous one. It should have the code from the previous exercise, so you don't have to worry about getting the solution. It should already have that. Let's make sure. Yeah, it should already have this code. So take a look at this one. Now we already have the first part was showing the data from on the screen, right? Show all the books. This one is related to adding and deleting. So you're going to save the book once you fill out the form, and then you are going to delete the book when you click the cross button.
You see the vulnerabilities?
Did that help? No? Okay. So somebody try to get cache. So what's happening is trying to launch your browser, and for some reason it's in try that. thread that in also and do you try that? It work?
No, it's just
Well, it's not a solution. Oh, it's a thing that's about. I don't think much on it.
pseudo.
No?
Who ever heard of such a thing?
You read the sentences? Yeah, that's the pseudo
Yeah.
Then you ask for your password.
I'm going to practice CSS. You won't get the time for the next one.
What about this one? Yes.
When you save, do you need to refresh the query from the database to reload the books?
Like refresh the form?
Like, do another engineering call for the books.
To update the list?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the. Otherwise, I don't think it's going to update. Let me think. Yeah, to get all the books. Or does your books component, does it, maybe it gets loaded again and it shows up without doing anything? Okay, I'm going to install and make.
I was just wondering if there was like, because you have the did not, I was wondering if there was any way you could like trigger that again and say not
Oh, it did mount again?
as a short.
Hey, Daniel.
Refresh it.
That's what it triggered.
So did that work?
It triggered that screen bug out. There it is. Oh, okay. You read the whole word?
Oh,
Oh. Share it. Just in the Right. Okay, let's see if I see code. Run. Okay, so 9 is fixed and 10. Right. So you can go ahead and run and see how it's fixed. Speak down on let me do that. You never know. You never know. We'll do this and stuff. I'll get rid of both. Oh, no. Yeah. I thought it was on there.
I got those first. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not. So that's I'm a director. Well, no, we tried that. We tried
So you can call the same function the fill the submit button. Is that what that is? Can you got it? Yeah. Can you just do
Oh, no, no, no. The code that is inside that.
okay, so basically create a function.
Right. If
That's
yeah.
what I literally just started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it because it's in the previous example they already have a function.
Okay.
Can just be called again. You guys should be able to add the book. As soon as you add the book, it should show up over here. Then you can press the cross and it will delete this also. So nothing?
So what I'm trying to do is just work the process of elimination. So when I did that baby is right now, okay, right? And on that support wasn't, we couldn't access, right? Only this is a React, the other one's for you know, a post for time and I pull up something else. Yeah.
This is working with the
Yeah.
what you can do is if that's partition, copy the whole
That-
folder
that's
and put it.
Oh, copy the whole folder?
Well, yeah,
Give
the
the source folder.
source and the line and all that stuff.
Okay. Show the search.
Yeah, that's what I told you. So it's something with the VB code too. That's So we are doing the next exercise. Number 10. And this way, in this one, you have to add, click the submit book. It should add the book over here, and then you can delete with this cross. Yeah.
The models.
Okay.
Why is it that we need index.js to export the book model when we're already exporting the book model?
Yeah. So the Node.js is looking for your index file. So you don't have to export everything that is inside that folder, but you have to put in the export in your index. So if you see where books is being referred, you're not seeing slash from the exact domain. Okay, so starting if you put an index.js in your folder, and Node.js will look for that folder, and anything that is inside your index.js is going to get exported. So right now there is one, so you don't see the benefit, but if there are like 10 people, you put everything in your index.js, Node.js will, you just have to put in the folder.
I mean,
I get that. I just wasn't sure what the point was specifically here. I guess just to get in the habit of it.
Yeah. So if you have books, authors, blah blah blah, models over there. We'll just-
You explain me the weeks before talks again? I remember there was like something, sometimes they do it before, sometimes they do it after, and do different things.
Which function is this?
That's the belief function.
Yeah. Is it in the render?
It's in that,
Which file are you on?
yeah,
And
I'm under the SIC.
yeah, components. Yeah, this one, right? Index. Why don't I see anything here?
There you go.
Oh, this one.
Not have a delete button for that.
Interesting. I haven't seen this in there. Anybody seen what this dot 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 is doing over here?
We were talking about one of the past recent classes. I remember seeing it.
Dot dot dot. In this context?
I don't know if it was in this context.
See on the line number 4 and 5 what it says? Spread all of the paths into this element. That's we're gonna have to define all of them individually. So what is going on over here is that plots have properties, right? And it has each one assigned. The one that I was talking about was that const one. It's similar to that. Remember we had a curly bracket, and then we have name, value, and then it gets assigned from your event or target. I think that's what it was. right? As long as these properties, name and value, exist in target, they get automatically assigned to this. That's what is called, the restructure or something. It's kind of similar over here. What this is doing is, so let's backtrack and see where this delete button is getting called from, or delete component is being passed from. It's probably in your books. Is it in your render function? So it is passing some props, right? So what this is saying, that whatever the props properties are, assign it to them. So let's suppose there's an attribute called name, and there's a props.name. So it will automatically assign to that attribute. If there's an attribute
Where do you find
called, huh?
Where do you find the prop?
Yeah. So where do you find the props? Who's passing the props?
Isn't it the parent?
The parent. So who's the parent of this? So go back to the parent and take a look at the parent.
I thought it was app.js.
Is it? Open up app.js and see if there it has delete this tag, or it doesn't. So that's not the parent. Books.js. Yeah, take a look at books.js.
It just says props anyway.
That's good.
It does. It says what?
Props are anything.
No, I'm just
Which line?
Which
line are you looking at? Line number?
My books.js is way different than yours.
I'm okay with it.
Are you looking
That
at the
doesn't affect you.
uppercase books?
Uppercase. I'm under pages.
This one I did nothing.
And it's the only JavaScript page under pages.
Oh, maybe I'm looking at. Let me go back here.
So,
Mm.
58 is the end. Oh, so over here, it's nothing is being passed. So you need to construct that. That's when you. So what happens in the delete button? In the delete button, it kind of right. Well, yeah, on click. So you have to create that on click, and then pass this over. And why do you have to pass it? Well, it is expecting some props. You don't know what props are, but all you have to do over here is you have to create that on click. Let me show you how.
yeah. I did
Okay, so you have to pass in some property. You have to pass in the on click, right? So you're calling this function this dot delete book over here, and that's all. And where does this method exist? Is it over here, or is it part of delete? It says this dot delete book, so this means it's in this file. So it is a function which makes the, as you were saying, the Ajax call and deletes it. So you have to create this function and call it over here. Oh, call it over here, and then so this one is just saying, if there is any property, just assign it to it, whatever those properties are. It's kind of more like a general versus saying each individual property. Let's see if I can find an example of each individual ones. Let's take a look at this one.
looking for over there, we don't have to see files.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I can see is we call it filter.
Let me find a better example. Okay, this one is a better example here. So look at this one, right? You have a component which doesn't have anything, but you can add some properties later on. Why you can add these properties? Because it's an object anyway, right? You can add to an object, you can add it anytime. So what they're saying is kind of like a bad practice to do that. So instead of that, what they have done is, because at this point, at this line, you don't know what properties you want. Let's suppose, right? Later on, you learn that you need a foo and a bar property, so you set it later on. So instead of doing this, they have come up with this thing. So it's kind of like the optional part that you are telling React that, you know, there will be some properties, but at this point, I don't know what it's going to be. That's all you're saying. And then in your code, when you call this button, this thing, in your books.js, you can pass anything you want and it will still work as it is, because your general one is expecting something. It just doesn't know what it is. It's kind of like the any keyword.
And the prop in this case would be the book ID.
The prop would be this function. Anything inside this thing. So it's like the you're passing in the function. But whatever the return, oh, there's no return type. Just call that function. So basically, this is your prop on click, and then this is your output. You click on the book and what happens?
Yeah, so if you go to your site, this is the part and stuff, and you click on the misborn top one.
Okay.
It's supposed to load in the title on everything on the synopsis on the site.
Right. That's the next part actually. It's not over here. It just add. Are you on 11?
No, I thought it said it on.
I think in this one it was just adding and deleting. Let me go.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no. Yeah, that's the. What do you think this is? It's the router. So you see the link changes. It takes you to the different link. The whole link changes. So my guess would be it's something to do with router. Like you have to create a route which takes you over there. If this is done, you can take a look at the next one. I think that is the React router one. That should take care of it.
Okay. Who knows?
Oh, just why is my page not loading? Yeah. So this is how you load books. The first part of the part one, this is how it looks like. You are updating the state. You should already have the load books method. See how these states, we already set this array. It's kind of emptying it out for now. And this is initializing the form. Handle input change is exactly the same as from the previous exercises that we saw. It's updating the state based on which input box was entered. All right, right now we have 3 input boxes in the form. So the title, author, and some comments. So this will get the correct value based on which box has been entered. All right, this is the exact code from the same exercises. We're just updating the state values. And when does this get fired? Every time there's a letter or a character entered in any of the 3 input boxes. That's when this method gets fired. Okay. Do a console log over here, and then you can type in something and look at the console and see that this method gets fired like every single time. Every time you type in something or hit a backspace or something, this method is getting fired. Now this is the one that's saving the book. So you have your form filled out, and then you click OK. What you're doing is you're calling the API save book, and you're passing the stuff. So API.save book. At this point, we'll go and save the book in your MongoDB. Okay. And then when it is successfully added or something happens, you recall this method, which actually will call the load books, and it will get all the books. Okay. Now here's the again one more time. When you click the submit button, it goes and saves the book. Okay. And then when it is successful, the then is fired and it loads the book. It calls this function again. Okay. Now what is this function doing? This function is calling the database again, getting all the books. All right. But if you notice on your web page, what will happen is this list gets updated as soon as you click something, add something over here. Okay, without refreshing the page. Why is that happening? As soon as I click submit, my list gets updated over here. Let me you see submit, and my list gets updated, and the first thing, but my page is still there. There's no submission, there's no refresh happen. Okay, and I'm firing this code over here. comes here, saves it, and when it is successful, it calls this function back, which what it does is makes a database call, gets all the books, and the screen without refreshing still gets updated. How is that happening? Magic. What's kind of magic?
It's only reloading that one module.
It's
Right.
reloading the?
It's just that one module that's updated.
No. It's not reloading the component. So put a console log over here. You will see this one. It only gets loaded when you type in localhost 3000. And then you will only see this once. But when you add the book, you would think, I would think that component did mount again gets loaded when you click the submit button, but this will never get fired again. Remember the state thing, it's the state. So remember I was saying the state belongs to the component, and React is smart enough, as soon as the state changes, it will update the page, okay, without refreshing it. So what is happening over here is, I'm calling the same function again, loadbooks, it goes ahead and it updates the state with the new array, and React will be notified that there was a change in the state. It has to load the page, so it kind of refreshes it without actually calling the component did whatever the component did mount method is. It will automatically refresh it, and that's why you don't see any refresh. That's the working of the React. As soon as you change the state, it will kind of reload the component, but without firing the component did mount or any of those methods. Kind of refreshing your page without reloading the whole thing. That's the part of the state, and that's why the state is so important. As soon as the state refreshes, React does its magic. Without reloading the whole component, it will still update your page and show you whatever you are showing over here. Okay, and that is the magic of the state part. You update your state, your component will be updated with the new data without actually reloading the component. The what? Yeah, this one, right? Yeah. Okay. Again, remember, that's why state is so important, and that's why you see this saying that without reloading or putting too much pressure on the server, too much pressure on the web page, it does its own thing and it kind of refreshes the page, actually rerunning the whole thing. Okay, just remember that as soon as the state gets updated, React will go ahead and update the page, only the relevant information that needs to be updated. It's not going to reload the whole component. And the next part was the delete book. Any questions on this? All right, guys, keep going back and refresh your memory. Keep revising the props and state part. That's like the state components, state, props. Those are the fundamental of React, and that's how you build your web pages on React. And those are the two most important part, because there's nothing else available. If you see that you can pass data between your pages or you can update your page, those are the only two things that you have. You have to come up with ways how to use them, so that you can achieve what you're trying to do. All right. So props, when you are passing data from your parent to child, and state remains part of your component. State does not leave your component. This state is only valid within books.js. It does not leave outside. It cannot go outside. Doesn't work that way.
So why did the naming conventions change between books and no longer called books component or books container?
I mean, looking. Oops. Yeah, looking at the previous design pattern, I would call it books container. I agree. Well, that's how the solution didn't update it, but
So they separated out the all letter.
Yeah.
all their models versus
Right.
containers.
Yeah. But I agree. If I had to name it, I would say books container. So that if I look at it, this is exactly what. There's no props over here. It's only state, and I'm kind of. And the books is actually calling all the stuff that is the presentation part. So I would call it books container. Yeah.
You go back to the submit form.
Which one?
Submit form book.
This one? Okay, let's take a look at the delete one also. Similar to get, you are calling the API. It already has a function called delete book. You call that. Once that is successful, that's when the dot then gets called and you reload the books. Again, when the books is loaded, the state changes and React knows it has to refresh whatever is showing on the screen. So it will go ahead and it will kind of refresh itself, stay over there, and then you will see the book go away.
So component did mount is what's preventing it from reloading the browser.
Component what? What was the question?
Did mount
Yeah.
the actual function that's preventing it from loading the browser.
Preventing
Reloading the browser. So every time you make an update
no.
to the render.
No. Component did mount is not preventing anything. Component did mount gets called once the first time you go to that page. That's it, and that's done. It doesn't prevent anything.
And so how does load books keep getting rendered?
Right. So that's what I was saying. It keeps getting rendered. If you look at load books, what happens is the state changes, and that's when the magic happens. React is looking for this state. As soon as the state changes, it will kind of refresh that component, but will not like reload the whole thing. It knows who is using this state, and it will update that part.
Oh,
Yeah, and that's
Right here?
the state part. That's why if there's any interaction in your web page, you set it into your state because this is the one that React is keeping track of. As soon as this state changes, it will kind of refresh that part.
Make sure I'm in there.
That's what happens.
Okay.
Okay. Let's look at the render part. Anything over here? It's looping through, and then you are clicking the delete button. It calls this method. I don't think there's anything different. Same looping. What else is there? And then you're calling form buttons. What is happening over here? You see that button on the screen, kind of disabled and enabled. That's because of this. It's checking if this is empty or not. If you haven't entered anything, your form button is disabled, and then it calls this on the click. Okay. Let's see. What else? Any other questions on this? Even if it wasn't part of the exercise, if you have any other questions that you saw in the code, please let me know and I can go through it. It's still part of the React. When you guys are doing it from scratch, you will be creating everything. Okay, good. All right, so let's take a look at the last number 11 that has to do with the React router. Take a look at the code. Remember the router portion. This time we are using that external library which is called React Router. Okay, so we started with router, then we should have something called routes, and then link. Okay. So these are the three components that go in the React Router library. Okay. Let's see what this outputs now. So the first exercise we started with books one was just displaying all the books. The second was adding and deleting. Let's take a look what this one is saying. Okay, so you have to set up the React Router part so that your forward slash and slash books both render the books component. Interesting. Okay, and then if the page does not exist, you have to add a 404 page. For the page that does not exist. So instead of books, I type in something else, it should come up with a 404 page or say something. Okay, that's the part 2. And the part 3 is, if you remember, if you click any book, right now it takes you to this page like an ID and everything, but it doesn't show you anything. So you'll have to set up a route that shows you the detail page. Let me go ahead and install this and then show you guys the final form. CD. Okay, so part 1 again. Part 1 is look at the router documentation. Slash basically takes you to the home page. In this case, they're saying the requirement is even if I type in slash books, both should go to the books page or the books component. Okay. Take a look at the documentation. Remember, you can pass in a component in your route route component. All of these changes are being done in part 1 and 2 are required to modify app.js. Of course, because if you're updating the routes, they are usually in app.js because that's the starting point. Okay, right now there's no routes defined over. Okay, make sure, look at your package.json to make sure that you have React router and all the required libraries. Looks like their dependencies are already there. So you just have to do a yarn install or or a npm install. You should get the React router library also. Okay, this is what loads the first time. If I put a slash, loads it, slash books, still loads the same page. Alright, that's the first requirement there. Both of these routes should come up over here. Let's see if I add books. You see this route doesn't exist, so it gives me a 404 page non-found. That's the part 2. Okay. Should still be same thing. Edit. Okay. This time when I click, it shows me the detail page. See this one? So look at your clients, source, and app.js.
We're good.
if you guys had start look at the number 2, go ahead and import the route. Look at the documentation for switch also. Uh, switch is part of React router.
Here's a good facility with that bathroom thing. If you send me a solid file. Mm-hmm. So it goes all the way through. Does hang on there again. Right, you just like that. No mind. Starting it. Something to do with that.
Do you have your MongoDB run? Accessing the database.
I thought I did. Let me do it again.
Oh, yeah, so MongoDB once you start, you can use that in
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you just try to do it separately. You have to run the separate Mongo one either?
No, just MongoDB.
Just Mongo.
All of these exercises are using database, so
I had enough earlier, but I might have closed it. So, I try to do that. We won 3 or 4 things on that board.
Oh yeah, we were trying to create that.
That works on.
Yeah, so copy the folder inside and just give them the
Yeah.
and then copy the source.
Oops. Sorry.
I think you can copy everything from
I'll minimize that.
yeah, you should be able to copy this, yeah. Except don't you shouldn't have the package log JSON. Yeah, everything should be fine. And then do a yarn. So don't copy the solve, copy everything inside it and put it in your
Everything?
yeah, everything, client, You have node module, delete all the node modules folder, whatever the solve folder is. Delete the solve folder.
Yeah, there it is, right there.
That will not work? No, it creates a, when it creates a new reactor, it will.
I'm pretty sure that's the app I just made. That's the one we call demo, right? Yeah. So this was the one we made. So you were saying from this file, which is the one that's running there, the solve. And then copy those, and then delete the source.
Delete the source. Okay.
And then and then it's everything okay.
In order to push it to the put it into work.
No, it's no.
Yeah, so there's an npm do an npm install.
Do an npm.
Oh, sorry.
Yarn. Yeah.
Right. So, well, what switch does is as soon as switch finds the match, it like stops over. So if you have switch and then you have routes below it, as soon as switch finds that route, it will stop over there. It won't go and process the next ones. So over here, if you have like 1, 2, 3, 4 routes, if I find a slash, it's going to display and stop over here. But if you remove the switch, it goes, finds this, then goes here, says, oh, this matches, it's fine. This matches, no, it doesn't. This matches, no, it doesn't. This one is going to render this one too. Because this one kind of matches everywhere. If you don't have switch. Switch is specific that as soon as it finds the first one, it stops over there and doesn't render anymore. Doesn't check for anything else. And that is required because your last component is the 404. It has to be rendered, it doesn't have a path. Basically, with 404, you are saying if none of these exist, display 404. And you want the switch to only go to this route when none of these actually exist. Try this without the switch. It should render the 404 every single time.
So do it again. Look what it did. It says no line actually the file changes before start. looks like it's not. And I don't know why it says this, because that's almost involved.
And you are using yarn start.
Yeah.
Yarn.
Well, that's possible, I think. I know I looked up conflicts, and it says no monofin hamlet fits for yarn. And it doesn't restart.
So this is what the switch is for. Whenever you are using some component, especially when you have a 404, when no route exists, switch is the way to go, because try without using the switch and put your component over there. You will see it should be rendering it, and that's how the route is built. What it does is it will check each route to determine if that's what it wants to display without the switch. With the switch, what happens is as soon as it finds the path, it will display and it will exit out. That's the difference. Again, switch, that's if you look at the documentation, they're saying this is intentional and they know it. The way the route tag, the route component is built, it is supposed to go and try to find that component go through each one of the conditions. I mean, you would think that as soon as it finds the first one, it's going to exit out, but that's not the case without the switch. If you want that case, then you need to put the switch over there. That's how it works. And this is important because the last one that you have, the 404, the condition to display 404 is that the route doesn't exist. And how does the route doesn't exist is you have like nothing over here. You're saying if none of these are there, then say 404. It doesn't exist. So that's why the switch is useful. And I kind of remember, if you want a page to be displayed, especially 404 or something of that sort that doesn't have a path, that's where you will have to use a switch statement to make sure that this only gets rendered when none of these match. Again, I would recommend go ahead, delete the switch and see what happens. Put the switch, put some route, make sure you understand how the routes are defined, or use the example that they have over here. You can copy the same one and take a look at that one too and see how switch is behaving. Okay, so this is how you set up all your paths. This was the part 1, and was it part 2 also? What was part 2? Oh, the page, yeah. So in the components, should have a no match, and it has all it has is some static content, which is 404 not found. Okay, just using Bootstrap to load that page. There's no state, no props also, there's nothing, it's just like a static page. Okay? Okay, what was it? Good. And then it was getting the pages. When you click, it shows a detail component. That was the last part. When you click it and the detail page comes up, the first time it renders, you are using the same method, component did mount, and that's what you need. You want to get the specific book. So API already has that method, get book, you pass in your ID, and it should bring you back the details of that book. And then you assign it to your state. Okay. Let's see where. And this is the route for that. Slash books, and you see a weird 25 alphanumeric character. That's what the route is for. So we can copy that route, paste it in a new browser. You should still come to that detail page and everything. Okay, because this component will get called, and then when this component gets called, component did mount is the first one that's going to get called. It's going to take that ID and get your book. Okay. The render is your HTML. Once again, this is the more important part. As long as you get this state variable, you can access all those titles and show however you want. As much CSS and Bootstrap you want to put in, you can put in over there and show those things. If you see, these are all displays. There's no loop or anything because you're getting one book. All right, and then you're displaying the title, author, whatever you want to display. Okay. Any questions on this part? Anything else that you want me to go over? I think this was. Yes.
The API, the ticket book, this says cross-match brand ID.
Which file are we talking?
The detail.
Oh, a detail. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The dot this. Does that refer to basically which is going to be the search bar? If you type that in, it becomes this.
What is it referring to?
Yeah.
No. What do you say? The search bar thing?
This.
It's referring to the props. Well, this is because you have a class component, so it is referring to this class. That's why it's just a keyword that you have to use when you're referring to any of those things inside the class. So this, if you guys remember from the keyword, we saw this in your objects. So if you're part of that object and you're trying to refer to some field that is inside that object, you're using this keyword. Basically, this is equivalent of self. Like you are saying, refer to this variable that is part of this. In this case, it's the class detail. That's what it is referring to. Let's see, detail is being called from. What do you guys think detail is part of? Who's the parent for detail? Oops.
It's in app.js.
It's in what?
App.js. It's being called
App.js. But it's being imported. So basically, details is its own thing. Right? When you click it from the books page, there should be one in the books too, because I click that link and it takes me over there, right?
No, it's the A. Scroll down. There's the link right there.
Which line?
Scroll. It's right there.
Oh, okay. This one. Yeah. So it's this link that is taking me to that page. Okay. So detail itself exists on its own basically. It's not part of. It's not a parent or anything. It's its own component. Okay. So the last part is you take the code and try it out, deploy it to Heroku. Let's see if there's any. Thing. Okay, they have the instruction. Give it a try. See if you're able to deploy. I know you guys have deployed your some of the homework on it. You guys deployed your MongoDB. So the last part of this exercise is go ahead and give it a try and see if this application loads. Well, there's 10 minutes and you guys can work on it. The last few minutes before you come back to this exercise, if you go on your Slack, I have pinned a conversation. How do I get to it? Was it this one? Yeah. So these are the requirements that I shared earlier for the project 3. As I told you, now we have completed, the MERN stack, whatever you guys need to learn. In the future classes, I'm still not sure about the week 21. That's still in progress, but till now, I don't know if there's anything new material related to any of these technologies, but we'll be doing some exercises, maybe spend some time on the homework in class. But for now, take a look at the project. We'll discuss more on Thursday. Thursday, I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the project. Okay. We'll see this time the project is going to be divided a little bit differently. We'll have you guys will have 4 weeks of the project, and every week there's a deliverable. Okay. Every week there is something that I want you guys to come up with and submit it. All right. So you have 4 weeks, and every week. And I think I'll come up with the dates every Tuesday. And I'll give you the dates. Every Tuesday, there will be something that you need to submit, okay, until the end of the project. These are the requirements. Please go to the requirements. All right, make sure you guys are familiar with it. Thursday, we'll discuss more. My expectation from the group perspective is 3 to 4 people per group. I'm not going to make this time, so please go ahead and kind of float the idea. Try to find some like-minded folks who are kind of on the same page with the idea that you guys want to build. Okay. 2 is too less and 5 is too much for a team size. So again, 3, 4. Please make sure I want everybody in the class to be part of some group. Hopefully you guys kind of sort it out among yourselves and everybody is part of the group. But in case somebody is not able to find a team, please let me know and I'll have to put it. I'll do the random number generator and put somebody in that team. Anyway, so kind of socialize with your in the class. See what you can bring to the table. If there's already a team and you want to join the team, tell them what you can work on. What is something that you bring to the table, kind of like the hiring session. So work on that. We'll discuss more. There are more details for the project, but that's what it is. These are the requirements again. Yes. Do you have to what? Yes, must. What is there any other option you are thinking?
Well, I was curious because if I could deploy to like the electrical like logos.
Okay. You know what? I'm totally fine with it. If you can do it, I mean, the concept of Heroku is kind of free and everybody has access to it. But the point over here is still it has to be like hosted somewhere. You don't have to be running from the local host, and it cannot be GitHub, of course, because you cannot deploy any non-static pages over there. If you want to deploy it on a web host, yeah, I'm fine with it. Yeah. Make sure your team is also fine with it. It should be okay, but I don't see a problem with that. Okay. Right, so that's all I have for today, and I'll see you guys on Thursday. We'll be discussing a lot more on the project on Thursday. So come up with an idea if you guys already want to think. Um, you guys probably will have to submit something on Thursday towards the end of the class. We'll discuss more. Um, let's see what else. And that's it. The last exercise is go ahead and try to deploy it and see if it works. You should have the solution. I'll upload all these exercises, and then I will see you guys on Thursday. Oh, how did it go?
I got it on the spot.
What?
On the spot.
Really?
Cheering.
Wow.
But yeah, there's some tricks. Well, I think no, it's not really one kind of one.
Right.
Because I don't even think it's not.
Was it Kobo?
No, he said that he was working. I said no. And he said okay. We don't have to.
Is it more like
No, it's more like
Yeah, it's only.
So you guys tell about the technology?
Something for
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a real thing. I would assume it's Java, like
So
This is an American Express.
Well, actually, today I went to another one that I actually took also and that's actually what you wrote on their main website, and that didn't go so hot, but because I was so intimidated with my computer and I was exhausted.
What did they ask?
Oh, everything, God damn it, everything, everything, they asked me everything.
Are you surprised? I told you exactly to ask.
Like what?
Everything.
What is everything? Now I'm
They started with Express. They started to tell me how to do that, how to like call an API in Express and stuff. And I could tell that because I was preparing for that before on the interview. So I said that I understood them, and then just everything about the difference, and then about I'm sorry, like they wanted me to do that goddamn thing. I needed to
numbers.
yeah.
You see your guys
I kind of semi-failed that, but they were very nice about it. So, but anyway, I thought this one kind of weird. But they told my recruiter, they said that they would give it to me.
Great. Wow.
Yeah. Thank you. So I'm just kind of like,
Well, you must have answered it. That's why.
no, I decided towards the second. Right away. Yeah, just
They're
like.
in the same company. They're both American Express. I don't know. But it's the same recruiter. Set them both up. So
Same building.
So it's the contract to hire thing.
Yes.
Okay,
So, I don't know.
Very nice. Hi, guys.
they are, yeah,
I know.
definitely.
They live in the same company.
Yeah.
But it's completely
Different building.
Yeah, I know, right?
far away from each other. Yes.
The same job, basically.
So how does the is it like a per hour? They give you per hour?
Yeah. For 6 months.
For your
and then
Is there like a sign up for
You can renegotiate them.
I tell everybody, there's no harm in or saying that, the most they will say is no. But you will, I was telling 95% of the evaluate is higher.
Yeah.
Go
After
to
the
the
6
market,
months.
yeah. If you say I want this much, even if you don't even match it, but they'll try to come with something. Yeah, again, you are still getting more than a job.
Yeah, we're excited.
I was dead. Brain dead. Yeah.
Yeah, they want like to drop the back end.
Yeah, but they
The
not
Mongo
really focused.
database.
They all do that node and Mongo. It's all.
Yeah, we'll see if you get it. So Java, to ask those questions, but I told you guys, that Node.js backend is a good, and a lot of startups use it, but when you go to enterprise solution, Java is still it's more
I hope we
stable.
can start with Java.
Well, that's what I told you. I don't think it's Java.
More React.
Yeah, it's more probably for React or something.
It's okay with me. I'm a little lost.
So our
Well, on Thursday, I want to spend some time teaching on this again. So if you have any questions, what are you lost on? We'll just do a recap. Make sure that
I think it's like the linking. Yeah, so I streamed that one Saturday. Posted the ES6 stuff, and I think I missed some stuff there.
Okay.
Like the pointer functions I'm still on to look up with and
Well,
stuff.
I posted a link on Slack where I said that there are
Until next time.
if ES6 you don't understand, there are 3 features from those ES6. Those are the
Getting it.
whatever you're gonna get. Forget about the rest of them if you don't have time. Just look at those 3 features. I think it's the arrow function. The second is the import thing.
Okay.
What was it?
I don't know, so I'm gonna write it down.
Just let
Let it cons, the arrow function, and there's one
We're trying to pull it off of one.
that gas uses a lot.
This was a good idea.
So beyond.
Well, yeah, the import. Remember, in Node.js we use the require,
Yeah.
but over here we are using the import statements. So that's the ES6 part, and then I think those 3 are the things that I saw that might be the past.
Okay.
Let me stop this.
Do you think I would be served to uninstall a few things